It's about not about the attention, but it is about they need the spiritual affirmation from their spiritual family. Otherwise, they're going to go to other places to find that.
Welcome back to another episode of Cultivating Truth. My name is Aaron Davis, and we have Shawn Mitchell from OTHRWRDLY with us today. Everybody give him some love.
Hey, appreciate that.
As you can see, representing the merch right now, OTHRWRDLY is a Christian organization that is very similar to Aletheia in a lot of ways. And so, Shawn, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys got going on at OTHRWRDLY?
Yeah, sure thing. And thank you, Aaron, for having me and letting us talk about OTHRWRDLY and other things we've got going on. So, let's start with who am I? I'm Shawn Mitchell. I'm a creative entrepreneur seeking to create organization similar to Aletheia and organizing creatives and artists from around the world who have common interests in obviously the faith journey of Christ and using their gifts and talents to point everyone and culture back to the gospel and God himself. That's kind of basically in a nutshell like what we stand for as a I guess as a teaser for what we're about to get into.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if people don't know, for us with Aletheia Legacy, we exist to partner equip with other ministries, other artists, creatives, institutions, churches, all of the above. And I always feel the need to say that because I don't want to feel like I leave anyone out. Right. But we specifically look to create beauty, engage the culture, and inspire the world. And I think it was not quite a year yet, but when we discovered OTHRWRDLY, I think maybe over the summer, seeing that you guys had a similar mission and vision, but kind of from a different angle and a different perspective, which really excites me. Could you tell us a little bit about your vision for OTHRWRDLY?
Yeah, sure thing, of course. So starting with, very similar mission. It's easiest to go to our mission statement is shifting culture through art with the gospel. So basically it's the same mission as Aletheia of, creating beauty that is excellent and can inspire the world to point people back to the gospel story. But like you said, it is through a different angle. So I guess it would kind of help to talk about projects that exist that are good examples of this idea. And if you think about it, so let's go with the obvious things like the Chronicles of Narnia, right? C.S. Lewis, famous Christian apologist and writer and literary. I mean, he's in the English Western canon of being the finest. One of the finest literature writers of all time, right? For sure. So, and the Chronicles of Narnia on their own is just a beautiful allegory of the story of Christ and the mankind. Like the whole story, like from point A to Z is, oh wow, this is like deep, profound literature of the reality of Christ. So, and of course, like any grade student, I didn't read all the Chronicles of Narnia books, but I remember going through those books and even watching the film adaptations in the classroom of my schools. And I remember it being like, a popular franchise and all that, but I never realized until I actually came to faith and studied deeper into Christian apologetics and stuff like that C.S. Lewis was one, a Christian, and that two, it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, Chronicles of Narnia, Aslan is the lion that overcomes the grave, the death, and he's resurrected. The whole the type story of Jesus is supersede onto the character of Aslan. And as a kid, some people find that obvious. But I'm just a kid in grade school and I'm like, I don't really get it. But so anyway, that story, obviously Lord of the Rings, and even controversially, Harry Potter, I think have significantly been, all these stories and franchises have contextualized the gospel, whether knowingly or not, and have put it to culture to see it, and people have not ingested it because we're in the state of the world that we're in, but works like that have kind of showcased beauty in a sense that we seek to create things like that, like stories that aren't retellings literally of, hey, here's a film of Jesus again dying on a cross, but making art that is showing that story yet through a different angle. So those are things that like that's way down the line though. So, you know, eventually that's a big hope that we would love to get into telling stories like that. But that's right now not part of our main focus as of yet. But yeah, definitely a goal to create stories that, again, shift culture through art and with the gospel. So that's kind of, I guess, the framework that I would love to work in when the time is right and the Lord leads to that opportunity.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys got going on right now to where you feel like you're fulfilling that mission? Right.
So right now, for many people, they know us through our mainly our Instagram page, where you'll see anything that's graphic design work as of right now is myself doing the design work, and I usually like to try to tell a story within the piece of whatever the design is. Sometimes it's just a subject with some cool fonts and stuff like that. Or other times, if you actually read the caption and see what I'm kind of getting at, the image tells more of a story than you realize. But yeah, that's one avenue we're in right now, is just every day putting out some type of content that is. I don't like using the word trendy, because that's not. I think that's such a gross word sometimes. But it is in a sense trendy. We try to focus on using elements in our design philosophy of urban, or not necessarily, because most of Christian design stuff is like pretty flowers or like very clean nature. Aesthetic. Right. So that's and there's a time and place for all that, and that's great. But for my context, my background, and other people, I'm sure, who can relate to like my story or the mission of OTHRWRDLY, you got to have some mess in your stuff sometimes, right? So a lot of my graphic work on Instagram revolves around like graffiti or more, again, like urban inspired kind of typography. Yeah. So that's anyway, that's one channel and avenue that we're going down to, again, contextualize the gospel to the for it to be palatable and relatable to others in culture. And a kind of other thing we're also pursuing is building an online Discord community where artists can, come together, interact, and kind of, again, it's an extension of the same ideas of being kind of with the times, right? Like with each other. So like I always encourage people in our Discord, like, hey, study around like the spheres of influence around you, like in the church. You can and study from the world as well to be able to own your craft well, and not just not learn from what others do. I feel like that's one of the most dangerous ways to stagnate your creative development, for sure.
So OTHRWRDLY, and we're repping right now.
Yes, sir.
You got some nice merch. Be sure to check out the merch. We're going to put the link and the YouTube video, and check us out on our social media accounts, and we'll be sure to tag OTHRWRDLY so that they can get connected to it. But as you can see, OTHRWRLDLY. So we're missing some vowels there. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about where the name, the design, where does the name come from?
So kind of a rabbit hole of thought, but I'll try to summarize quickly. So I grew up and inspired by, again, like hip hop culture, street culture, and a lot of people in the street and hip hop spheres, when referring to artists like other rappers or visionaries, whoever, they'll be like, "Oh, dude, that guy's an alien," or like he's like just not from here, like he's different. Notably, people who say things like that are like Pharrell, or even
and the Neptunes.
The Neptunes, the whole thing was, they started to label Star Trek, and when they did that, they adopted the Vulcan salute from Leonard Nimoy. Which is that's another rabbit hole to get into, but I won't go there yet. But we'll probably touch on that here in a second. But yeah, and from there, I've always been inspired by that, right? Like, I was like, oh yeah, like, yeah, artists are kind of funky. They're not from here. Like, yeah, okay. Different, right. But then, as I've given my life to the Lord, over the course of my development and my walk with him, I remember he kind of just, he gave me that verse out of John 17. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane right before he's about to get crucified. He's praying to the Father, just, this is where, he's saying, God, if not my will be done, but your will. But then he goes into starts praying for his future followers, and he's asking that the Lord will protect them, because like, he's sending us into the world, and he's not taking us out of it, and he's, all those famous prayers, right? But notably, what stuck out to me, it hit me. It was John 17:16, where he says that they are not of this world, even as I am not of this world. And then all of a sudden, that like hyperlink connected between what Jesus was saying and what like Pharrell and a couple other people have said about artists. And it's like, Jesus is the like one true artist. Mm-hmm. That's John 1, right? The Word was in the beginning. Nothing was made that was made if it was not by him, right? Yeah. So it's like, if that's all true, then Jesus is like the OG artist. And
sure.
And if he's saying he's not of this world, we're not of this world, there's those dots connect in a way where it's like, wow, yeah, we're otherworldly, right? But so yeah, that's the where the name came from. As for the stylization of the name, OTHRWRLDLY period, that is just, I mean, most like trendy. Again, that word, I hate it, but it's the only thing I could think of. Trendy things, tend to opt out vowels just as like a cool, like, what's the thing? The word where it's not whatever it is, doesn't matter. But again, that has kind of biblical roots too, in a way. When the holy name of God, Yahweh, if written out, fully in our English alphabet, is YAHWEH,
yeah,
right? But as a symbol of respect, the ancient Hebrews would write out YW or YHWH, right? And then it's like, okay, so they took out the vowels. That's interesting, and as a form of like not writing out his name out of reverence. And then obviously that gets later adopted into writing my Lord or Lord Adonai. And our English translation just says the Lord in all caps. So yeah, anywhere you see that, it actually is referring to Yahweh, that word. So again, that's also an inspirational thing. We're not saying otherworldly is divine or anything like that, but it's just like, oh, hey, look, like they did it for God's sake.
There's a cool connection there. Yeah, because the Hebrew language without the vowels, it's very, very much different. But I actually thought of that comparison whenever I first saw the name. So that's awesome. That's really cool. So as you look to inspire artists and help other creatives that are out there, and specifically with Christians who are in the creative field, what do you find currently Christians need the most in an artistic atmosphere?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because there's several needs, multiple needs, particularly for the Christian artist. I think arguably the biggest need, in the sense of being a creative and a follower of Christ, is the affirmation from the church. But we're in a time right now where that doesn't exist necessarily, where, we see that the church often doesn't have categories for art. They think, if you're artistic, that means you might lean one way on the political spectrum. And if you lean that way, then you're wrong, or whatever. Not to say that all churches are like that, but it's a common thread with a lot of creatives. They feel like that they can't express themselves because, for whatever reason, they get shoehorned and categorized into being a certain a certain type of person, when that's not necessarily true at all for a majority of, actually any artist. Like no artist is like another. The only thing they're looking for is to be validated that their worldview and perspective, although faulty, as we all have faulty worldviews, and that's what sin does, right? Distorts the way we think. I think that the local bodies of churches around the world need to be aware that we often don't make room for creatives. We do in some senses, like, it's typical that the worship leaders and people who are in charge of the obviously more creative ministries are there. They obviously are creative, right? Like that makes sense. But even just being able to be like having allowing people to freely express like their art, like having art displays in the church. Like I can't think of many churches that have done that at any point in time that I've been following Christ, as like that they do that regularly kind of thing. It's never been like in place for anybody. So I think that, that's probably the biggest need. Making room for the artists in the church to be able to express their gifts and talents in a way that isn't like, wow, look at me, like I can do it's not, it's not about the attention, but it is about they need the spiritual affirmation from their spiritual family. Otherwise, they're going to go to other places to find that in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really good. So, and when you say that, there's this community that needs that and they need some affirmation, it sounds a little bit like kind of what you guys are doing with your Discord channel. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys are doing with that channel?
Yeah, of course. So we recently, when I say recently, at least over the past year or so, we've tried to meet twice a month on Discord, our online community, where people can come, join, share what they do, and how they do their process. We encourage people to like live stream their creating process with our channels and everything. So it's up for them. But yeah, we'll try to meet twice every month, once for a teaching and edification of solid biblical teaching for myself, and then also like a creative encouragement. Hey, this is how you like as a Christian artist, like we'll dive into a text of scripture. Like for example, we did Ecclesiastes, right? Ran through the whole opening of the book, which ends in Solomon saying in his wisdom that there's nothing new under the sun. But we contextualize that to say, so if you're a creative, you're not really creative. You're an artist who knows how to riff off of ideas that have already been presented in the world. You're just reframing those ideas to appear new. God's the only being in all of the cosmos that can actually create from nothing. Ex nihilo. We can't do that. We can't, I can't make atoms appear in my hand right now. I can't, I'm not literally creative, but I do possess the ability to recontextualize something to appear new. So yeah, we just an example of how we would use the text to sort of teach creative gifting in that. So that's one meeting we do a month. The other is a more casual, laid back community, kind of like game night type thing. We'll have people come out, fellowship, catch up on, how you doing? How's your day? Like, I remember you were saying that your mom was in the hospital last week. Is she doing better? Like, what's going on with that? Like, just casual while playing video games online. Because I know creatives, we tend to like our games. But yeah, so that's right now what we do. The goal for that whole online Discord community is that they can all just get connected to each other, and projects can be born out of those connections, right? So like if, one person's like, hey, I'm a music producer and I would love to work with a Christian artist. The problem a lot of times is that Christian music producers can't find the Christian artists, or the Christian artists can't find, the Christian music producers. So, we're hoping that this can one day be like a hub for people to like find other people and be like, oh, like I'm gonna go hit the Otherworldly Discord server and find them and like, hey, is anyone here who can, who wants to use this beat, or anyone here who can fit this style? Like, not just music, obviously, but for all art forms. Like, if you're a creative director and you're looking for an actor who can hit this role right, boom, you find the person you want, or put out a request within the Discord and like, oh, okay, like this guy says he's interested, things like that. So that's the big goal for the whole thing, is like, I want other people to get connected with each other, like as the body of Christ, but just online.
Yeah. What I think is crazy, and you've mentioned this as well in our private talks, is that we are states away, over 8 hours of distance, and for us to be in a room right now, we had to get on a plane, and so what I think is crazy is that separately we have a similar vision, right, a similar understanding of a major problem that's going on in Christian circles. The church, although obviously not perfect, flawed, falls short of the glory of God, but has been redeemed by the precious blood of Jesus.
Amen.
But one of the cultural problems that we see right now is this kind of separation between the church and creatives. Yeah. And I have experienced this on a more, I would say, I guess, an academic level, because I worked in the school systems. Whereas it seems like you've been in this field and in the trenches, like all along, and seeing like, man, there's a disconnect here. Yeah. And my heart would break every year. It didn't fail. I would have to write a recommendation letter for a student, an artistically, beautifully talented student. And if they were serious about their artistry, it was essentially like they needed to consider leaving their Christian bubble and their Christian circle. Yeah. And the only ones who could take care of them and allow them to grow was found in a secular university or at a different school of thought.
Right.
And maybe they don't go to school, but maybe they get a coach or something else, and it kind of takes them away. And that broke my heart. And that was kind of the essence of what started Aletheia, was we wanted something different. And it sounds like you have the same heartbeat. So there may be other organizations that are out there that are similar to Aletheia, similar to Otherworldly, which if you're out there and you are listening, we want to hear from you.
Amen.
So be sure to connect to us. But what's your hope and what's your dream for organizations like Aletheia, organizations like Otherworldly? What do you hope to see in the coming years in the relationship with the church?
Yeah, a great question. I would hope there to be to just have that understanding that creatives are, I think that's Thomas Jerry, I believe, said this. Could be wrong.
From Humble Beast, Thomas Terry?
Yeah, from Humble Beast. It was either him or it was Brent McCracken. I can't remember right now. But whoever said it, credits to them. This is not my thought. But the artists need the church, and the church needs the artists. With those two without each other, kind of go into dangerous places. So that's the hope that, through, the efforts that we put in and other organizations like Otherworldly and Aletheia, is a global thing, that the church will begin to see the need and say, oh, like we should be helping these people and support them so that, they can continue to do the work and the hands and feet of Jesus, but within their respected mediums and art forms. Because, and I feel like we're in the dark ages right now because for whatever reason, post-Enlightenment, you keep seeing this steady decline of art being in the church. Like Enlightenment time, it was like the church was the spot for the artists, right? Like the visionaries, like all coming from from the church, but like Renaissance Enlightenment time frame, not like Thomas Jefferson Enlightenment era stuff. Anyway, but like they that, and it's just crazy to me because it's like, most of your, like, music wise, right? Like we're gonna take let's take Bach. Bach is the founder of Western tonality. Not the founder, maybe necessarily, but he laid so much groundwork for why when we hear major 1 chord moving to a major 4 chord to a 5/7 chord going back to 1, it makes sense in our brains because he developed a framework for counterpoint that made that model of harmony work out in the end. And where did Bach start? The church. Bach was like writing music for the church. That was primarily why he was doing music. And then, you could read a lot of his private letters to people, and he thought music was created for the beauty, to reflect on the beauty of God. Like that's like, to me, where, it was like clear in that point of time where, we understood as a church, like, yes, the arts are God's. It doesn't belong to any camp, any political ideology. It is God's. But over the past, 100, 200 years, it's just been this decline of, that's not reflected anymore. The church is not the hub anymore for the artists. The artists have to go, like you said, like writing that letter of recommendation to a secular teacher or whatever. And that's not a bad thing. God's gifted the human beings in general with those gifts and abilities. So it's not a bad thing per se, but yes, it does open up a can of worms for, okay, spiritually, are they being nourished, right? And we don't know the ethics of the ins and outs of that person's private life. How will it eventually, it might affect that student.
And historically, what we've known over the last several years is that typically it's going to be from a secular worldview that's going to be very anti-God.
Right, exactly. And when we, and that's the thing, is if we don't allow the arts to be back integrated into the church, then we're going to lose out on seeing the world just keep getting more devolved. Because as I know that you say all the time, is that, the arts, the media, entertainment, they shape culture around us, whether we realize it or not. And that's, if we can't step up to that plate, then, we have a lot of, I don't mean to be like provocative, I guess, when I say this, but we have a lot of blood on our hands if we don't step up to the plate and create things that actually speak to the world at the end of the day, because it's something to steward, and if we're not stewarding it well, then I do think that's on us for not doing it well. As the church, I should say. Clarify that. So that's my hope, that the church will realize the need for the artists, and the artists will realize the need for the church.
It really does seem indirectly. I've heard pastors from the pulpit reference those who are in arts and media as the enemy.
Right.
And I understand why. When people say Hollywood or, New York or whatever, and they're referencing a certain subculture that does not complement Scripture.
Yeah.
But it saddens me to think that the church could do something about that, and the church could come alongside, cultivate these artists, indoctrinate them properly, but also allow them to flourish, and then equip them to go out and use their skill sets for the glory of God. And I think both of us, that's our heartbeat. And so it's really, really cool that we found you guys, and we've been able to connect, and so love having you on the show. And so what we're going to do is that this is going to be part 1 of 2 episodes on the podcast. Be sure to check us out on our next episode, where we're going to sit down and we're going to talk a little bit about Transcend, an event that OTHRWRDLY hosts every year. Can't wait to talk about that. But until next time, I'm going to call them aliens. Be sure to check out OTHRWRDLY. Follow them, give them a like, share their material. Shawn does great work, and his crew of people that he is connected with. Be sure to show them some love. And if you need help finding them, be sure to connect with us at Aletheia Legacy. See you guys next time.